We came to Brisbane to help with the birth of a grandchild, and then it started to rain. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. Yeah. Well, we don't wear skimpy bikinis. Hell, it frightens me when I take my shirt off. There's definitely no one pregnant here. This is motor sailing for old dudes. We do live on a boat, and we do cruise extensively along the Australian coast. Join us and visit some great destinations. Learn how to look after a boat and live off grid. It might even get you enthused to do the same thing. Hey, stay out there till you can't. Well, it's been a pretty wet 24 hours here in Brisbane. We've been in a house, but even got a bit of cabin fever. We've been indoors for quite some time, so we're just taking a bit of a walk along the Brisbane River, and you can see that the river is pretty well flooded here, but not as bad as what they got back in 2011. They're controlling the release of water from Wivenhoe, which is great, but we have had a lot of rain and a lot of water flowing down the river at the moment. This catamaran and houseboat have been anchored over on that side of the river for probably the last 2 years. It'll be interesting to see how they go in the flood. Well, good morning, dudes. This is day 3 of pretty heavy rain, and the Brisbane River is pretty well up now. High tide at the moment, so this hopefully is as high as it's going to get today, but it's still raining quite heavily here. A lot of rubbish, pontoons still floating down the river. There's a catamaran that's been anchored here for a long while. He's either dragged or been pulled down the river by rubbish, and a fair bit going on, so yeah, not much fun here in the Brisbane River. Hopefully this rain goes away today and gives us a bit of relief, but everyone's a little bit on tenterhooks just seeing what it's going to do. It's nowhere near as high as I think it would have been in 2011, but a lot of rain still falling. This is the third pontoon we've seen come down the river this morning, so be a lot of carnage upstream, and they're probably creating a lot of carnage downstream as well. Wouldn't like to be in the river at the moment. This houseboat is anchored or tied up to the mangroves on the inside of a bend, and maybe that's going to save him. All these pontoons seem to be going past. Well, it's still absolutely pouring here at the moment, so no let up for this rain, and we're going to head back down to the kids' place and jump in our car and head down the Gold Coast. So I just want to go down and make sure that the boat is all right. I'm pretty confident she will be at the marina at Hope Island, but just a little bit concerned, so we'll get down and check her out and see how things are going down there. But a lot of rain over the last 3 days. It's been unbelievable. Just got out of Brisbane in time. The river was really rising, and hopefully the kids are okay and they don't get flooded, but we had a bit of trouble escaping from Brisbane with floodwaters over a lot of roads, so we're on the way to the Byron now. It's still very wet. I think we're going to be alright getting to Wendy's place. Headed to the boat on the way here just to check it out. The boat's good, no water inside it, no water in the engine rooms or the tiller flat, so it's all good. The marina was really dirty and probably a metre higher than it normally is. And we're just on the road now and the weather's still atrocious. Yeah, hopefully the system leaves us in the next day or two and everything can dry out. Unfortunately, the rain followed us down the coast and now it was Byron Bay's turn to experience a bit of flooding. Good morning, dudes. We've driven down to Byron, come down to Wendy's place, and the rain's followed us down, so not as bad as what it is up on the Brisbane River. We've got some real problem up there today, I think. But yeah, there's a bit of flooding down here as well. This cafe we usually come to for coffee, it's got waterfront views today. Anyway, this is probably going to move down the coast a bit more today and maybe leave us alone. I think it stopped raining in Brisbane, which was good for them up there, but it's still a bit of trauma. The weather, you can't do much about it. Of course, the first thing to happen is that the supermarket shelves become very bare. The other thing is that the ocean at Byron, that usually is crystal clear, turns a very nasty shade of brown. For 2 days we can't get back to Brisbane because the M1 highway has been cut in a couple of places by floodwater.
Is that recording?
When we do get back, it's a scene of total devastation. G'day dudes, back up in Brisbane again. Unfortunately, Dave and Hannah's house got a little bit of flood damage. Not as bad off as some, but still a bit of cleaning up to do, so we've come back up and given them a hand to sort through the shit that's got to be thrown out and the mud on the floor. So we got all the stuff that went under out onto the front lawn, and now the council are down taking it all to the dump. It's a big job and these guys are working out in the heat now, so flooded 1 minute, 30 degrees the next, but they're doing a great job of cleaning up an awful mess. The other thing is the place does smell a fair bit of sewerage, I think, in amongst the water that flows through when you have a flood like this, so that's something else you have to contend with. Anyhow, they've cleaned up Hannah and Dave's yard. It took about 2 hours with a bobcat to get them on 3 or 4 trucks, so it's a big clean-up effort by the council. Well done, guys. It's amazing when things like this happen, how many people are out to help. We've come up to help the kids, which is just natural, I guess, but there's been people walking around the street with food, drinks, just you know, giving support. Not every house under, but the people that were above the flood level, they're going around, a lot of them anyway, are going around giving support to the people that have, some of them, lost everything. So I guess that's the Aussie spirit. Good on yous. And Hannah and Dave did all this with a week-old baby just newly home. Of course, it wasn't only houses that were compromised, there was quite a bit of carnage out in the river as well. Unfortunately, the houseboat we looked at earlier didn't make it, and this is all that remains. And this is some guy's home, so I'm not sure what he's doing now. So what can we learn from situations like this? Maybe people that dwell on the river in houses in low areas might make some changes. In a boat you shouldn't really be compromised because the boat will float up with the rising tide. Of course, when a river floods like this, it's probably going to flow at about 10 or 15 knots, and that river was really flowing about that fast on the third day of this deluge. So if you're moored or anchored in a river and you don't experience a change of tide, it's time to get out of that river. But if you're in the river and the tide doesn't turn, so it's flowing out continually, that's the time to leave. Don't wait for any longer, just leave. And a lot of these boats, if they could have left and moved out into Moreton Bay, there wasn't any wind with this event, it was just torrential rain. It was quite calm for the whole time. So that's one lesson that you can learn. If the tide doesn't change, if you're moored in a river and you don't get a tide change that you normally get, it's time to leave. My heart goes out to people that have lost homes and people that have lost livelihoods. There was a lot of businesses went under and also people that have lost boats. This event wasn't just confined to Brisbane. This system moved all the way down the east coast and affected people as far south as Sydney and beyond. So a lot of people hurting after this event. And of course, apart from the loss of property, the tragic loss of life. I think 13 people perished in the floods in Queensland and northern New South Wales. So condolences to the families of those people tragically lost. And a huge thank you to all the people that tried to help out. There was lots of volunteers out there lending a hand when we were in Brisbane, and I'm sure all up and down the coast that'll go on. Good on you, dudes. Hopefully the system's moved offshore now and people can get on with the task of cleaning up and getting back to some sort of normal life. You can try hard, but sometimes you just can't beat the weather.